I'd like to start by just talking a little bit about the journey of the Tasmania Jewels and our association being here today with St.Lukes, who we've obviously announced as our foundation principal partner. I think Addie's going to steal the show off you, Kayla, today. We might get her up for a chat too, and as the principal partner. But in doing so, I'd like to welcome Lindy, who's in the audience today. Lindy has been an ambassador for us for our She Games, and one of the beauties of sport is that you can highlight the challenges of people's journeys through sport, and we've been able to do that through our She Game. We've been really able to put a halo effect on raising money and awareness for ovarian cancer, and Lindy kindly offered to be an ambassador for us. And Lindy, it's so wonderful to have you here today and looking so well, and thank you for joining us. The partnership with St.Lukes, which this is a good segue, is really going to be shaped around women's health and using our WNBL team, our platform, the Tasmania Jewels, to really highlight the issues that women face, which we know are very different to men, and really trying to normalise some of the conversations that we need to have around women's health. So this is one of a kind in terms of a partnership. We won't refer to it as a sponsorship because it's truly a partnership where every player, every ambassador, every GM, every coach that signs up to this team will take on a role as an ambassador for women's health in Tasmania, and we're really proud of that relationship. We're really proud that St.Lukes have worked with us on this opportunity. And so without further ado, I'd like to sort of start with you, Alanna, and talk to you a little bit about your journey from Tasmania to the global basketball stage. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very long story, so I'll try and keep it short. But I was born here in Hobart. My dad played for the Devils way back when, and he jumped around a bit in Australia, so we just followed him wherever he went. And I have an older sister, she's 5 years older than me, so myself and my sister and my mum followed my dad from Hobart to Sydney when I was about 1, and then to Melbourne when I was around 3 or 4. And then we stuck around in Melbourne for a while. And then when I turned 18, I went to the Australian Institute of Sport. I graduated from high school and then went to the Australian Institute of Sport and was a part of what's now called the Centre of Excellence, which is their basketball program. Stayed there for a year and then went on to Stanford University in 2015 and went to Stanford University for 4 years. And so I graduated from Stanford in 2019 and was drafted to the Phoenix Mercury number 8 in the WNBA draft in 2019. Following from there, I played in Phoenix for 3 years, Indiana for a really, really short stint, and then Chicago for 1 year, and now I've been in Minnesota for 2 years. I just wrapped up my second year. And then in amongst that, I played for the Opals, went to a World Cup in 2018, went to the Tokyo Olympics, most recently the Paris Olympics, won a bronze medal, and then hopefully on to Berlin later this year for the next World Cup.
So not much at all, really. And you did announce yesterday that you've also been, just because you haven't had enough to do, you've done a little bit of study on the side. You want to talk about that?
Yes, so when I was at Stanford, I did my undergrad in psychology, and I kind of followed along in my family's footsteps. My mum is a counsellor at a men's prison here in Hobart, and my sister is also a psychotherapist here in Hobart as well. So my poor dad now has to deal with 3 of us who are all trained in psychology, so that's really fun for him. But I just recently, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago, graduated from an honours program. So I did my honours in psych, a year-long course, an advanced course. And yes, very happily graduated. I'm actually going to my graduation next week in Melbourne, which I'm looking forward to. But yes, and hopefully onto my masters sometime in the future.
And congratulations on that. It's one of the things, having worked in professional sport as I have, that, you know, we're really trying to encourage our athletes to make sure they're studying as well, so that when their career is over, they've got something to fall back on. And it's something that we've noticed has been a gap in some of the football codes, is that some of our men feel really lost when they finish playing. So it's really important that Alanna's done that piece of study, and we'll go into why that is important a little bit later. Kayla, I feel like you've gone the opposite way. Alanna's gone from Tassie to the US. You've gone from the US to Tassie.
Yeah, so I grew up in Washington State, about an hour and a half out of Seattle, in a very small country town, similar to where we are now in Kingston. And from there I went to Gonzaga University for 4 years, and I studied teaching and specializing in special education. We did play against Stanford a few times, but I'm not going to tell you the results of that. And I was fortunate enough then to get invited to the draft for the WNBA. I actually went to Minnesota, where Alanna plays now, and was cut not long after that. So about a week in the WNBA, which was awesome and terrifying at the same time. And then made my way over here to the Townsville Fire and played 3 seasons up there and a few seasons in Perth. And eventually Clint and I caught up together finally in Perth, where we got married and had our first child. And then this team in Tasmania popped up, and a startup club, and I was a bit anxious about leaving Perth for many reasons. The basketball club was outstanding, and Perth is quite beautiful. And when we arrived in Tasmania, it was just like we'd struck gold. And not long after that, we fell pregnant with our second child. And played a few seasons with the Chargers, and Clint then finished up his season with the Jackies, and we thought we were finished with basketball and closing that chapter, and then sat down with Christine and Darren, and hopped right back into it happily, and just really excited about what's ahead.
Well, in true Tassie style, Darren is my offsider and also Alanna's dad, Darren Smith, who we all know, a very accomplished player and played for the Devils, and sort of a real leader in our office, both from a cultural point of view. He turns up every day as his best self and really encourages us all to do the same. So you've had a wonderful role model around you, Alanna, and as you have had too with Clint. And I remember you saying when you were leaving Perth that Scott Roth called you. I was wondering why he called you and not Clint.
Well, he'd had a few conversations with Clint, but he handed me his phone and it said Scott Roth on it, and I was a bit anxious, going, I haven't even met him, why is he, am I in trouble? That was my first initial thought, I have to admit. And he just wanted to welcome myself and Noah, our son, to the team, and I just, it really struck gold with me. The previous team we'd been a part of, we certainly didn't feel sort of that affection from the coaching staff. So for Scott to bring up and welcome us to the club was outstanding. And then unfortunately when we got here, it was obviously during COVID, and we couldn't get into a doctor a lot of times, so we'd end up at the hospital with our son with RSV and all the fun stuff. And Scott would actually then ring me and ask how we were, which I feel comfortable now when Scott rings me. I know I'm not in trouble. It's for a good reason most of the time.
I still don't feel like that.
But he's good man. I felt really comfortable moving here.
Yeah, and I think, that's very much part of the cultural part of our club, has been really making sure that we build a village around our partners, our players' partners. And I've been really big on that because I've been an isolated mother bringing up a young child at one stage in my life. And we talk about that a little bit in female leadership, that sometimes you've been on the journey that others are on, and you can lean into that a little bit more. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is blazing trails and making sure that we're creating pathways for young girls. I've worked my entire career in a male-dominated environment. I've chosen to do that, as Scott Roth reminds me when I'm having those bad days and I pull him aside for a chat. He reminds me that I chose a path that was never going to be easy, and it was often a path that was I was feeling very lonely from a gender perspective, and so I had a great ability to get in my own way, and it was his job to help me get out of my way, which I thought was great when he put that to me. But one of the key objectives when I came here was to make sure that, and seeing the success of the Jack Jumpers in the early days, that we created something that was similar for our young girls, because we've seen how the Jack Jumpers have captured the hearts and minds, and that goes across both females and males. But actually that opportunity to one day aspire to play for your team in Tasmania. So the Jules announcement yesterday was something incredibly special, both to myself and the club, because we are really now saying to the Women's National Basketball League that Tasmania is really here, and we're a real force in basketball. Alanna, how important do you think this is for the grassroots?
I think it's absolutely key. I often think about my own journey in basketball. Obviously, I didn't grow up here, but I think just with my own experiences in Melbourne and the community really getting behind me as a young basketball player, and I actually started quite late. I didn't start playing until I was around 13, and I was terrible. I was really, really bad. I promise I was. But people and coaches in the community saw potential in me, and I worked really hard, and so they really fostered this support and helped me grow this love for the game. And I often hear statistics, and you just see how young girls quit sports around the ages of 14, 15, and there's a really, I can't remember what the exact statistic is, but they're very, very likely to stop playing sports around that age. And so to have a team down here that girls can look up to, aspire to, and also I think something that's really, really unique about the WNBL is players make themselves so accessible. Like after games, you can go and chat to players, you can get autographs, you can get photos, they train young girls and kids, and I think that's really, really unique to this league in Australia. You do not get that overseas, and so I think it's just paramount for like young girls in the community to have access to players like that and just build up these dreams and ambitions and push through that barrier around that 14, 15 age, and keep pursuing sports, because there's just so many opportunities that sports can give you, even if it's not playing professionally. I just think the life lessons that you can learn from sports are so valuable.
How even is the playing field for girls and boys?
Not even, no, no. It's definitely getting better, I would say. I think just in terms of basic resources, we're well behind, which is why I think the Tasmanian Jewels are going to be an amazing team and option for professional players because of the new facilities that are being built and shared with the men and women. And I think the fact that like it's kind of like a brother-sister team with the Jackies and the Jewels, and resources being shared across both teams, that's I think a really unique partnership as well, which doesn't happen often. But yeah, it's definitely not even, and you see it across resources, across investments, you see it in the media, and even pay disparity as well.
So give me advice as the CEO of the Jewels. If there was one thing that you wished that the women get that the men have got, can you think of what that is and what you'd be telling me that I need to provide for the Jewels?
I would love for it to be pay. Yeah, no. I just think time and effort. A lot of the times you see owners have these women's teams, and it's basically just like a, hey, look at me, I own a women's team. It's like a token kind of, I'm doing the right thing, and then they kind of leave it to the side. Whereas like when you put time and effort into a women's team, it grows and it becomes something great. And I've been a part of a few teams where their owners and the people who run the show view both the men's side and the women's side really equally, and they just shoot to success, and you really empower the women involved to give their time and effort to, and it comes full circle.
And it's great advice, and often bringing a female team in is a box to be ticked, to tick gender boxes and make sure that the government or the corporate are seeing the right side of you. The way we want to bring our Jewels to life is through equal representation, and that includes us resourcing it appropriately off the court. And that leans into your new role, Kayla, and do you want to talk a little bit about your role, which actually is solely focused on women's basketball?
Well, just to sort of go off what Lana said previously about taking care of your people. So a lot of players would have struggled with some sort of mental health or issues that they weren't comfortable speaking with or about. I know certainly back in my day, 15 years ago coming into the professional world, there certainly wasn't any talk about mental support or emotional support or anything like that. You just had to show up and do your job, and if there was a problem, it wasn't dealt with in-house. You just sort of figured it out on your own. So I think being an ex-player myself, and obviously having the resources that we do, like St.Lukes, with other female staff around, I think I can really, hopefully support our women's team in that aspect, because that's more important than anything else, is getting your mental state right. And so anyway, bit of a sorry.
I feel like Kayla's still a little bit of a kid in a candy shop. Clint retired, and a couple of weeks after his retirement, Darren and I asked Kayla and Clint if we could take them and the kids out for dinner. And we met them at a pub in Kingston and sat them down. And I'm sure they were expecting us to say, Clint, we'd really like you to work for the club. And we started to talk about the journey we were about to go on. And then we said, Kayla, we'd really like you to work for the club. And she nearly fell off her chair. And I feel like ever since that moment, you've walked a little bit taller, if that was at all possible. But standing next to Alanna, I've realised it is slightly possible. But that you've had a real spring in your step about it. And so that has meant that there's been a bit of a role reversal at home. And Clint, you followed him around his whole career. You've had to really sit on the sidelines and probably sacrifice a lot of yourself and your own career. What does it look like at the Steindl household now?
Definitely a role reversal. Thank you. So obviously Clint would be away a lot of the times, and so that meant that I was at home to do everything, which I knew marrying Clint. He was a professional athlete before I married him, so I knew that going into this would be difficult, but you know what you're sort of heading into. But I think the hard part really was having no family support, and we don't have a nana here to just ring up and say, can you come over and help? So that's probably been the most difficult part about sort of figuring out our way with children and careers and whatnot. But I think since Clint's actually retired, now that he's been home every single night, which is so different for us, I think I've hardly made dinner, which is awesome. He's a great housewife, housemate. It's like I just have really lucked out with Clint's transition out of professional sport. I know having this conversation with Darren previously, he's just mentioned that his transition has seemed to just go seamlessly, and it really has. And he's very supportive of me in this role, and he knows what it means to me. And he's just been very supportive, and it's great to see the roles are reversed, and he's just taken to it quite well. And
Just on that, I want to talk a little bit about, go back to your time as a partner. We started up the Village program a couple of years ago, and it was called It Takes a Village because we do believe it takes a village, as we all know, to raise our family, but particularly when you're isolated from your own family. So as we know, a lot of our players come from interstate or even overseas, and they bring young families with them. And I was on the road with them the year we won the championship, and we were coming back from Perth, and we were stuck at Melbourne Airport for God knows how long, got in really, really late. And we had like a 24 hour turnaround to get back to Melbourne to play our first championship game. And I was looking at all the players lying around the floor thinking they are going to be so exhausted by the time we get to Melbourne for this game. And I remember thinking, and most of their wives have been home for a whole week with really young kids, and I think you had very young ones under 3. Most of the wives at that time had that. So it occurred to me at that time that we needed to do more to help the partners, and so we created a program called the Village program, which means that at our games now we offer creche services. So we have childcare workers in there behind the scenes, especially for the little ones that don't really want to watch a game of basketball yet. They're not quite at that age. So we entertain them with games and other things, and then we try to put on functions for the girls at away games so that they can actually bond together, get to know each other, feel like they've got a support group, but also, have a couple of drinks together. And so when their husbands get home, there's the resentment, I guess, is not there as much. And I really truly believe that plays into high performance. How much has that village program, do you think, helped with the girls as one unit? And also, do you think that can eventually play into retention strategy for players?
Yeah, when that program was brought in, I was quite surprised in a good way. We were at the sort of the pre-season meeting with all of the players and all of the staff and the office staff and the coaching staff, and this folder was brought out and it said it takes a village on it. And I was like, oh, what's this? And anyway, having a read through it, it was basically the club saying, we're here to support you. What can we do for you? And yeah, when the babysitting option was offered, that was just amazing. My son was only 2 when we got here, so he wasn't the competitive little thing that he is now, whereas now he likes to sit and watch the games. But for someone like myself that wants to sit there and actually watch the game and, you know, take it all in, it was quite frustrating a lot of times sitting in the stands with children like this. And anyway, when that was offered, it was just, yeah, amazing. There was a few of us moms here and all in the same struggle, same juggle, I should say. And yeah, we just felt like we were supported and that we mattered and that we were looked after. And then obviously our get-togethers without the kids and the husbands was always really something we looked forward to, because we knew we had the support around us to be able to do that. And I just think, yeah, as being a female, well, obviously as a mother, but as an athlete as well, I just think, yeah, the more you just look after the people that you have working for you, you know, it just helps. So I know that Clint could go to training knowing that his wife was happy, and Josh Majette the first year. Who else was Michelle Weeks? They had an 8-week-old baby. So yeah, we were all on the same juggle together, but felt supported, and that was just crucial. We certainly didn't have that at the previous club, and yeah, just felt like we mattered really, which was amazing.
That's great, and part of our partnership with St.Lukes is we'll be wrapping more care around both our partners, but also bringing in a men's program for the partners of our female athletes that we bring in, because equality works both ways. Alanna, I want to talk to you a little bit. You've travelled the world, and I was talking to Darren recently. We brought in a replacement import, and we put him in a motel room for a few weeks, and I said to Darren, we can't leave someone in a motel room for that period of time. It doesn't seem right. And he said, oh, no, that's just the way it is. When you go on tour, you can be in hotel rooms or motel rooms and live out of them for weeks at a time. And then he said Alanna did it in China, and I believe that in China you were living out of a motel room for 5 months. Wow. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I can't wrap my head around that form of isolation. I'm an obsessive washer, so I need a washing machine, so what did you do? And just talk to me how you stay out of your own head when you've got that much time in isolation in a foreign country like China.
Yeah, it was 5 months. I actually wasn't expecting to be there that long. I was told by my agent that we wouldn't make playoffs. My team wasn't going to be very good. So I was expecting to be there the longest 4 months. And then it turned out that we were really good and we made it to the semi-finals, which was crazy. But I was really lucky. My team in China, that's just how every team is in China. You live in a hotel for that period of time, and your whole team stays in there too. So every player's in there, all the coaching staff, everyone. And you have a translator. So I had a translator who was just for me, and I had an American teammate. So she was kind of like our personal assistant. So her name was Jin Jin. I actually miss Jin Jin a lot because she did all my washing for me. Yes. Yeah, I wish I could have brought Jin Jin back with me. She was an angel. But it was really hard. You're staring at the same 4 walls every day. It was winter, and I was in a really industrial city, so I didn't really go outside. I was also in the middle of China. There weren't many people that looked like me out there, and so whenever I stepped foot outside, I had people chasing me, trying to grab me, like pull my hair, kind of thing. It was, yeah, I had people they have mega fans over there. They had people taking my photo off the internet and making like little plushies out of me and stuff like that, which in hindsight is a little bit scary now that I say that out loud. So it was just a very, very foreign environment, like very, very different to what I was used to. And so I had to rely heavily on my support network in any way that I could. So it meant a lot of FaceTime. I'm a connections person, I'm a relationship person, so for me to really enjoy where I'm at and make a good environment for myself, I have to have good relationships with the people around me. So myself and Jin became really close, and my American teammate as well, Markeisha, we became quite close as well, and my Chinese teammates I tried to interact with in any way that I could. I can't speak Chinese, but we did a lot of like interpretive dance. That was really cool. So just trying to make connections with the people around me. And then I just had to find ways to keep myself occupied and busy, because a lot of the times you do get a lot of downtime when you're playing professional sports, and you're a bit tired, so you're not going to be doing much active stuff, but you're sitting. So at the time I was studying, which was really nice because I had some stuff to do. And I was actually really into Fortnite at the time, which I don't know if any of you guys know what that is, but it's a PlayStation game. And I was a gamer in China, and so you can actually play online in Fortnite, and you can play with your friends. Yeah. So I was playing Fortnite with people back in Australia a lot because the time difference wasn't too bad. So I was finding any way to keep myself occupied and connected with my people.
I have a 22-year-old son, so I actually know what Fortnite is. There's a young man in the front row here that I think he does too. No. We're going to move into resilience and leadership, but I wouldn't mind, I'm happy to take a break from questions and ask someone on the floor. Given we're in a really intimate environment, you should feel really comfortable asking Alanna or Kayla or myself anything that you'd like to at this stage. Got a question?
Yeah, I was just interested in the difference, what you said, between males and females. And way back when I got a lovely tour of the male locker rooms at my state, have you had a purpose-built, female-only locker room built for your team?
Well, I can answer that question. It's an excellent question, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspectives if that's always been the case. But we're building a high-performance centre out at Kingston, and we have made sure that the facilities for the women not only mirror the men, but actually look like women. So we have more needs for PowerPoints. People laugh at that, but we actually do. So there's things that we've considered, that we've consulted with women about what they see as really important in their change rooms. But I can't say that's always been the way. My State Bank Arena, there are change rooms that they're unisex change rooms, essentially. But I agree that there's some female touches that look like they're missing in those rooms. But certainly the build that we're doing now and the redevelopment at the Silver Dome will most certainly cater for the female market, and certainly for the games that we intend to take to the north of the state. Have you guys noticed when you've played in different venues the female facilities?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've played on, four different WNBA teams, and they all look vastly different in terms of facilities. Minnesota, we shared facilities with the Timberwolves, so we shared courts and a gym, and we had our own locker room and training area, so where we got treatment and massage, and that was really, really cool, and a beautiful space that was catered for the female players and the women. When I was playing in Chicago, did not see that. We actually trained out of a local rec centre, and so my locker room in Chicago was the public locker room at the YMCA. So as a professional athlete, I'm in there with retirement home ladies and just hanging out with 60-year-old Margaret every day, which was cool. You got to know the community, but probably not on the intimate level that you want to. So there is a big difference in teams, and having your own space, especially as a professional, I think is key, because it helps you just reach that level of performance and be a professional.
Yeah, well, I just think back to college at Gonzaga, and I remember going into the change room, and it was a brand new facility. We were very lucky to have that, and I just remember going in, and like I'm not a very private person. I certainly am not now that I have children. But going in, it was just a wide open space, just a big round room with no privacy, and I just remember feeling I was comfortable, but I just knew that other people, might not want to be changing in front of girls that they've just met, who after 4 years then become your best friends, and it all works out well. But yeah, just the whole privacy aspect. Obviously there were shower stalls, but somebody showered in them, the floor is wet, and there's no privacy to change anywhere. And yeah, I always felt that just stuck out to me. So anyway, with our change room, like you said, we've tried to add more PowerPoints and more mirrors and full-length mirror and more bench space for whatever it's needed for. So hopefully that helps make the girls feel more comfortable.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because society places so much pressure on women about how they look, and yet when they cater for us, they don't think about the things that might feed into that for us. Are there any other questions?
I've got one that will probably follow on from that. We hear so much about body image issues, particularly of late in sport, and the high incidence of disordered eating with elite athletes. Within the organisation, is there something that hopefully will filter down to younger people in sport too, as in support from, well, Alanna, you're probably a perfect example, psychologists and nutritionists, and how we can really get that information out to the younger population as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking after the athlete holistically is really, really important, and being really sensitive to that type of stuff too, because I think as you get to the elite levels, you kind of lose that sensitivity, and it's like very blunt and to the point, like, you can't eat this, you have to eat this. If you do this, you're going to look like this kind of thing, which I don't think is the right approach, to be honest. I think it can be quite harmful, no matter what your age. And I've had to do a lot of unlearning myself in terms of my relation to food and diet and everything. Obviously, your body is important and how you fuel it is important, but I think that there's better ways to go around just even language with food. And I think when you employ people like sports psychologists and have them around the organisation, that can really help in just teaching people the language to use, the way to pass on those types of messages, especially with nutritionists as well. And so when you have a professional team and bringing in those experts who are experts in that field, and instead of just someone who is kind of like a jack of all trades, you bring in someone who specialises in that type of stuff and knows the language to use and is the go-to person. So when people have questions, you direct them to that person because they are the expert, I think is one thing that's super, super important, instead of kind of leaving the athletes to, as Kayla said, you have to figure it out yourself, which a lot of the times can lead to some disordered thinking. And so when you have experts and resources, that can really help in that area.
It's something we're going to work closely with St.Lukes about, and not just in the nutrition space, but female reproductive health. And I spoke at the menopause conference last week, and it's interesting how the whole ecosystem, we don't want to talk about it. Like, it's just taboo. We keep it silent, and everybody suffers as a consequence in silence. So we want to use the profile of this team and our club to put these conversations more out and normalise it, normalise how people, and especially young girls, are feeling, and see what we can do to help, have the conversation, normalise it, and make it something that kids feel safe to talk both at home and school about. So it's something I'm really passionate about, and something that I really hope that over the journey of this team, we really start to evolve that and really start to see some progress in that space. Any other questions at this stage?
Firstly, Alanna and Kayla, thank you for being here today and your leadership, and it's remarkable. It's great that I hope a lot of young girls can follow that. Good luck with this, with the jewels. Alanna, psychology, we all understand the physical attributes that people in elite sport have and the training and the dedication that's required, but when in preparation and in playing a game, the rest of it's really up in the head. That's what makes the difference. So with your insights in psychology, how does that help you and benefit you both in prep and on the court?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kayla really touched on it before, talking just about like how important mental health is and your mental well-being. And I kind of look at it in a very like rudimental sort of way, in terms of the way I train my body is the way I want to train my mind. Like your mind is similar to a muscle. You can form habits and you can strengthen pathways and make things become quick thinking that weren't before. And so I've really made an effort to train my mind to prepare for games, to prepare for training, and to prepare for high pressure moments. And I've used a lot of the stuff that I've learnt along the way in my psychology studies in terms of just restructuring thinking and growth mindset and mindfulness practices as well, because it's training your mind is important, but also letting your mind recover too is important, because otherwise you're at risk of burnout. So being able to just get yourself to a rest and relaxation state is also something that I've had to work on really hard, because I've been taught to just go and go and go, and you need to be focused and locked in, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know how to relax. I'm just, my mind's ticking constantly. So it is about being able to get into states of mind in appropriate times, and that takes time and training and consistency and strategies to do it. And so for me, because I'm an athlete, it's really easy for me to look at it like a training session, like how I train my body, I'm going to approach how I train my mind. And that's kind of how I've approached it, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, great question. Mine was similar to that, but I think from my 12-year-old who was aspiring and couldn't be here because she was at school, she wants some nuggets in terms of give her the tips, what she can do. And her second question was, when you come into play?
Very good questions. Nuggets and tips. I could go on for days and days. You said she's 12?
She's 12.
Yeah.
She's met you a few times.
Yeah.
So super fan.
Okay.
I think she's going to make it.
Yeah, oh, I mean, that's the first, that's one of the things you want to foster in kids, is that ambition and dream and goal and drive, and then you can really shape that. And I think one thing that I learnt really early on, and I'm very grateful for my dad for this, is that it takes hard work. If you want to be really, really good, you have to work at it. And I think I resisted a lot from my dad early on. He was making me train at 6 o'clock in the morning before school, and I was complaining, and I wanted to go out with my friends on Friday nights, but we had games, and he was like, nah, you can't, you have to go to your game. And I was like, oh, but Ed Sheeran's playing. No, forget Ed Sheeran, you got a basketball game. So really, like if basketball is what you want to do, like, you got to focus on it and you got to put work into it. It just takes time. And I think that's not, I don't think, a crazy tip. A lot of people know, but it works. Like when you put time and effort and hard work in, it you'll see the results. So sometimes it means sacrificing an Ed Sheeran concert, unfortunately. What was the second question? Oh, if I was going to play for the Jewels. I would love to, not in the short term, but I would love to. I said to Kayla, hit me up in a few years, and I might be around.
We'd love to have you. Kayla, do you have any nuggets in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously what Alanna said is crucial, but I think especially at that young teenage time, can be so daunting when you've got really good friends that aren't, I guess, on the same pathway or doing other things. Whereas when I was that age, that was certainly my reality. I was very focused on basketball and other sports because I knew I had to be, but I didn't necessarily want to be, because I had friends doing completely other naughty things that I Yeah, not like Ed Sheeran's a naughty thing, but, you know, people would be trying to go do other fun things, and I just felt like it was really hard at that age to find the balance of that, and really stay focused and try and find a friend group within that positive aspect of your life. So find your basketball friends, or, you know, find your theater friends, or whatever it may be. Is you often find those people, obviously, that the more you dig into that, and really focus on what you want to do as a person, not necessarily what your friends want to do or what you think they might think is cool.
Can I ask a follow-up? Sorry. What about what other nuggets around being a tall poppy? Because that's very real, and we do that very well in Australia in the worst possible way.
Yes.
For young people,
Yeah, I actually had an experience like that in high school. When I was in year 12, I had committed to Stanford, and so people knew that I was going to Stanford, and it wasn't something that I often spoke about, but everyone knew I was a basketball player and that I played. And we had superlatives at the end of the year, and my superlative was made up by a group of people in my year level, and mine was Fig Jam, which is if I'm good, just ask me. So people thought I was inherently really arrogant, which I don't particularly think that I am, and that really stuck with me as like an 18-year-old, because I think I wanted to be humble and I didn't want to come across that way, and I hated that was what my peers viewed me as. And I look back at that now and I think about that experience, and I don't think I was a particularly arrogant 18-year-old. Like, I think most 18-year-olds might be a little bit. They think the world revolves around them, but I don't think I was any more than irregular. And so I dealt with that pretty early on, and I think it did make me feel like I had to make myself smaller, which I hate. I hate that. I think as especially tall girls, like I see my little sister's the same. She's almost taller than I am, and she hunches her shoulders and makes herself look small around people. And I'm like, you are unique. Like, you have this beautiful stature that people wish that they had, and it gives you this massive advantage in sport. But you can reach the highest shelves, you can see the tops of everyone's head, you can tell people when they're balding. It's great. You've got this beautiful frame that should be celebrated. And I think when you surround yourself with like-minded people, so being in sports, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful environment for not only tall women, but also high-achieving women, because I think we create an environment where we celebrate each other, and that's unique to sports as well. I think I've experienced a lot of that tall poppy syndrome stuff outside of sports, and so if you can create a community within your sports community, I think that can really help kind of shelter you from that outside perspective. Yeah.
It is a real problem, and it's something that it doesn't stop as a teenager. It gets into, and I say this a lot, men are not our problem, other women are our problem, and we don't celebrate each other enough. And when you do achieve at the highest level, that is something to be celebrated, but also something to revere and look up to, not something to be shut down, and not something to be constantly criticised. And it is something that we as society don't do well, especially here, and especially when kids are good. But Alanna started by talking about the fact she wasn't a very good player at 15, and she's gone on to be the best player in the world. So, it's also about giving children the time to grow into it and not expecting too much of them up front. And one of the things we're talking about in the club is a value that we hold very dearly to us in the men's program, which is called the 320 rule, which was Scott Roth's rule, which basically, I won't go into the detail because it's quite long-winded, but basically it rewards the people that did the best job on the bench. Because really there's only ever 5 people on the court, but it is the superstars on the bench, the team players, the ones that encourage and lift the other guys up that are on the court, that are the true superstars of our club, and they are the ones that get the rewards, and they are the ones that get the recognition the day after a game. And it's something that I'd like to bring out across all junior basketball, that we look at the kids that are actually raising other children up, that are actually supporting each other and cheering for each other. And I think that I'm going to be working with a partner through the Jules program to make sure we bring that to life. And actually, the prizes won't be, for the person that tried the hardest or the best player. They'll be the bit for the person that actually cheered the loudest and wanted to raise their teammate up. And it's something that we really, really want to put some time and effort into as a club. I'm just going to finish a little bit because I coin a phrase that you've been in the office a bit now, feedback's a gift. And I have been fortunate enough to be the recipient of a lot of feedback over the years, some of which I've welcomed in and some of which I haven't. But over the years I've learnt that people that actually stop and spend time to give you feedback actually are invested in you getting better. And I worked under Larry Kesselman for the first 5 years of this club, and he doesn't gloss things over. When he gives me feedback, he gives it very directly and he gives it in a tone that sometimes I'd rather he didn't. But what I've done is I've learned and I've grown from that feedback. And I've spoken to Alanna about this because I do find it challenging within my environment in the office to be able to provide feedback even though I think it's constructive. I generally subscribe to the positive psychology movement. I think when you give feedback, you can always do it in a really positive way. But I've never seen a coach at a professional level say, here, Alanna, can you come aside? I just want to put my arm around you and give you a bit of feedback in the moment. I have not seen Scott Roth do that during a game too. What is it like when you're in that heat of the moment and you're getting that feedback?
Yeah, coaches definitely do not sugarcoat. I think, especially within a game environment, it's really, really hard for them to think about the way they deliver because you're giving feedback on the fly and then you're moving quickly on to the next topic. So it might be a quick quip like, hey, you didn't box out, we need you to box out. Or that's very low level. Sometimes they go way above. But I've been coached by many coaches who their style, their communication style is very blunt, very upfront, which I actually have come to appreciate now that I'm a bit older. I've worked through my sensitivities. I'm still a sensitive girl. But I understand intention of coaches and what they're trying to get across. It's not a personal attack. It is constructive. They're trying to help me be a better player for the most part. And so I've actually really come to welcome that type of feedback because it is, especially in games, it is to help me improve and help me be a better version of me. And so you really have to be, as a player, quite resilient because sometimes the tone is, it is difficult to receive and the way that the message is given is not conducive to receiving. So as a basketball player, you really, really have to learn to be open to receiving information however it's being presented to you. And I think one thing that I've really learnt as I've gone through my professional years and being coached by many different coaches is having a conversation prior to season starting with my coach and just saying like, hey, listen, I am very open to feedback. Like I want it. I want you to tell me what I'm doing wrong. But I also need encouragement. And so I'm like very open in communication with my coaches about the best way to coach me. Like, hey, yep, you can tell me what to do. You can tell me when I'm messing up, but also can you tell me when I'm doing good? Acknowledge when I'm doing the right thing. And I found just that simple conversation, and even if sometimes you have to remind them throughout season, sometimes they forget, and that's okay. They got to manage 11 other people. But little conversations like that can massively impact the way that your coaches interact with you too, because they're trying to get the best out of you at the end of the day. And so if you can help them coach you in what you think is the best way possible for yourself, that's what I found has been really helpful in terms of that feedback loop.
I was just going to speak on the other side of it now, not being a player, but looking at players and coaches that I would like to recruit to this club. And so I've been watching a lot of basketball, which is awesome. That's what I want to do. But watching players come off the court and watching them and the coach interact and seeing, obviously don't know what's being said in that interaction, but then seeing how they walk away from each other if their heads are down or if they're looking at the coach and responding and giving some sort of answer and the coach, not necessarily giving them a cuddle, but making sure that they're, the communication part is there, and seeing the reception on both sides of it has been really interesting to watch. And I think for the most part in this league, because there's not a lot of most of this league are very respectful female girls that aren't showing much bad attitude. But obviously that's been something now that I've been looking out for, which is quite different, because I would have assumed that I'd be watching the best players scoring the most points and getting the most rebounds, but really playing into that 320 rule and just finding the good people, because you can't coach effort, you can't coach personality and that sort of thing. So nothing necessarily to do with skill, but basically how they're taking that feedback on or how they're giving it.
Addie's got it down there. God love Addie. Alanna, Kayla, thank you very much. St. Lukes, thank you for welcoming us in. I always get really stuck with that. One thing you do really well is welcome the community in and welcome us in, and thank you very much for that. I feel really privileged to sit next to both of you and learn a little bit more about your journeys. I'm a great advocate for seeing young people thrive on any stage they choose to thrive, and you two are an enormous examples of that. So thanks for today. We're going to hit the road. We're going to go and speak in Lonnie, and we're going to go and talk in Devonport, and we're going to share the wonderful knowledge and experience that these two amazing girls have to offer, and I'm sure they'd love to sign something for you before you leave. But thank you for showing up today. Thank you to the men in the room for showing up today. It's really important that we don't always just have these conversations with each other, and to all of you who are raising young girls, who are young girls, keep striving and keep looking at people like these that are going to be great examples and great role models into the future. Thank you very much, and go the Jewels.